Welcome to the deep dive. Here's a thought. If you could dial down the hurt from a painful memory, would you do it? Today we're plunging into some really cutting-edge science on modifying emotional memory. We'll start with something you might already know, cognitive reappraisal, or CR.
Right, CR. It's the strategy where you try to regulate your emotions just by reinterpreting what something means. You see it a lot in talk therapy.
Okay, yeah. Sounds straightforward.
But here's the catch. Its success out there in the real world is pretty limited, often because of context.
Context. So tell us why what you learn in, say, a therapy session doesn't always stick when you're back in your daily life.
Well, think of the therapy room as context B, the safe place. You learn a new way to respond. But when you go back to context A, the original stressful situation.
The old feelings rush back.
Exactly. That's spontaneous recovery, or sometimes renewal. The brain basically sees the new safe learning as kind of a temporary override. It hasn't replaced the old fear pathway.
So it's fragile.
Very, because the memory, the core understanding, hasn't really been integrated deeply.
Okay, so if that traditional top-down approach, talking yourself out of fear, is just creating this fragile override, what's the next step? What's the breakthrough?
The thinking is shifting. We need to move towards something more bottom up. Our sources are really pointing towards boosting CR by using something called schema enrichment.
Schema enrichment. How's that different?
Well, traditional CR mostly interprets behavior after the fact. Schema enrichment, which actually has roots in Piaget's work on learning, aims to fundamentally rewire the emotional network itself.
Rewire how?
It emphasizes interacting with your environment, getting timely positive feedback. You're building new diverse connections at a more basic level. It's about practice, about experience.
Ah, okay. That sounds like a really huge distinction. It's like instead of just adding a sticky note on top of the memory, you're actually editing the foundation.
Precisely. And that's key for you, the listener, to grasp. The goal is stability, making that new emotional association stick no matter the context, not just in the safe place.
You're training the whole system, not just the conscious mind.
Exactly. We have to engage the body's network, not just, lecture the intellect. But what if we could sidestep the cognitive part altogether? Target the memory's biology directly.
Okay, now we're moving into non-cognitive methods, like reconsolidation interference.
This is where things get really interesting, almost surgical. When you recall an old memory, especially a strong emotional one like trauma,
Yeah.
it briefly becomes unstable, sort of malleable again. That window is called reconsolidation.
And you can intervene there.
Studies show you can. If you pair that memory retrieval with a drug like propranolol, it's a common beta blocker, you can actually weaken the emotional punch of that memory.
Wow. So not erasing the event itself, but dulling the pain associated with it.
That's the idea. It's shown promise for PTSD, even for things like drug dependency, those appetitive memories. It's like pharmaceutical editing of the emotional tag.
Okay, that's medication. What about using technology directly on the brain? I know there's work with neuromodulation, like ITBS.
Right, intermittent theta burst stimulation. It's non-invasive, uses magnetic pulses. The fascinating research here involved applying ITBS, specifically 30 hertz stimulation, to the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the left DLPFC.
Okay, and what does that part of the brain do?
It's heavily involved in complex cognitive control, emotional regulation. So they applied ITBS before and after standard extinction training. That's the process of learning fear is no longer warranted.
And the result?
It significantly inhibited the return of fear, both spontaneous recovery and reinstatement. That's fear coming back due to a stressor. And these positive effects lasted for at least a month.
A whole month. That's significant. It suggests we can directly target and boost the brain circuits needed for stable emotional regulation.
Exactly. It points to the left DLPFC as a really critical target for fear-related disorders.
So we've got these powerful emerging tools. Schema enrichment for stable learning, propranolol for blunting specific memories, ITBS for reinforcing brain circuits.
Yeah, really promising avenues.
But they definitely lead us into some deep ethical waters, don't they? Especially when you think about the future, maybe invasive brain-computer interfaces, IBCIs, that could potentially selectively erase or just dampen emotional parts of memories.
Absolutely. The big concern that comes up is something called identity harm. There's this often cited hypothetical case, Claude.
Claude, tell us about him.
So Claude supposedly underwent a procedure that successfully erased the intense emotional pain of a really severe traumatic memory.
Sounds good, right?
On the surface, yes, relief from trauma.
But here's the twist. That painful memory, despite everything, had actually been the core emotional fuel driving his entire career in philanthropy. It gave him purpose.
So the trauma, awful as it was somehow fundamental to who he thought he was and what he did. Pretty much. When that intense emotional drive vanished, he found himself questioning his core values. His whole self-narrative got disrupted. He actually ended up abandoning his foundation because he just didn't feel, well, authentic anymore.
Wow, that's profound. The power to edit memory is also the power to potentially fracture someone's sense of self.
It's terrifying because these emotional components, they don't just shape who you are inside, they fundamentally shape what you do in the world.
And that brings up a huge question, not just for individuals, but for society. If we get really good at selectively turning down the volume on painful emotions linked to difficult experiences, think about historical injustice, systemic issues that generate anger or grief.
Yeah.
Could we inadvertently blunt the collective drive needed to actually fight those injustices? If we individually edit out the pain, do we risk losing the shared motivation for societal change? What happens then?